Hi, welcome to Vicky Makes and Builds. I have a video for you today which is related to jigsaw puzzles, but I'm not physically going to do a puzzle for you today. I would like to talk to you about how I approach large piece count puzzles and hopefully help anyone who would love to tackle a large piece count puzzle but feels like they do not have the space to do it. When I recently completed my 13,200 piece Disney orchestra puzzle, a lot of the questions I was getting and the comments I was getting were things along the lines of, I wish I could do a puzzle this size, but I don't have the space, or I don't have a table big enough, or my house is too small, or, you know, things along those lines. Limited space, meaning that people wouldn't really consider doing the puzzles, but would like to. And I thought that was a real shame, but it kind of resonated with me a bit, because these were thoughts that I also had before I tackled that puzzle, and also another one I'd done recently, the 6,000 piece Venice sunset. These were things that I genuinely thought that I had a problem with as well. I struggled to kind of figure out how I was going to work on a puzzle of that size in my 3-bedroom flat. I don't live in a large house. I don't have a spare room that I can puzzle in. I don't have a bit of floor that I can just kind of take up and none of the family can enter into it for weeks and months. I don't have any of that. So a lot of these kind of comments that I got resonated with me, and I really felt like I wanted to share the methods that I've used to overcome those particular limitations. So I'm going to start by using the Disney orchestra puzzle as an example. And the first thing I'm going to say is that if you have decided on a puzzle that you'd like to do, so let's say it's the Disney orchestra puzzle. If you've decided you want to do that puzzle, my first advice would be, before you buy it, to look on the website of the place that you're buying it from and find out how big the puzzle is. So find out the dimensions of the completed puzzle. Now, I have the box here, so I can just read them off the box, but you can find out on like Amazon's website or Smith's Toys or Very, where I got my puzzle from. Anyone who's selling the puzzle will tell you what size the puzzle is. So I can tell you from looking at the box that this puzzle is 292.5 centimetres wide by 135 centimetres tall. Now, if you work in inches, it does have the inches on there as well. So it's 115.1 inch wide by 53.7 inches tall. So now you know the full size of the puzzle and how much space you'll need once you've finished it, just to put it somewhere and take a picture of it. Now you know that, okay? That's where you need to start. Now, secondly, and also before you go out and buy the puzzle, try to find out, if you can, if your chosen puzzle is divided into sections. Now, a lot of large piece count puzzles are divided into separate bags of pieces and different sections. So the 13,200 piece Disney orchestra is divided into 6 sections of 2,200 piece bags, and they are laid out in a 3x2 grid. So you won't necessarily find that out on the website of wherever you're purchasing the puzzle from. A Google search might give you the information. Sometimes if you look at reviews on Amazon, somebody might tell you in there. But if you are struggling to find out that particular piece of information, my advice would be to go and speak to people in the puzzling community, things like Facebook groups and people on Instagram, or even maybe find and watch a YouTube video about that puzzle and see if the person building it in the YouTube video can tell you that. There are ways you can find out, and I find from personal experience that people in the puzzling community will be extremely helpful and give you the information that you are looking for. I've found them to be really friendly and outgoing in regards to, doing jigsaw puzzles and things like that. In fact, recently I wanted to know if the 6,000 piece Educa entering the bedroom puzzle was split up into sections, and it just so happened that someone in one of the puzzle groups had done it, and I just popped a wee comment on their post and said, is it split into sections? And she very quickly got back and said, no, it's just 6,000 pieces. So, and if someone hasn't done the puzzle, just ask the question, just pop up a post and they will answer you. You'll get answers aplenty. Honestly, the friendliest bunch of people I've ever come across. So, this is information that you can find out one way or another. So once you have got that information, so in the case of the Disney Orchestra puzzle, we know that it's split into 6 sections. We know that it's in a 3x2 grid. And we can work out from the dimensions of the whole puzzle how big each individual section is, and that's the key. So knowing how many pieces it is isn't really important. What you need to know is how big the section is. So I worked out, using the width and dividing it by 3, that the width of one of the sections, now just hold on a minute because I've got to find it somewhere down here. Yes, the width of one section is 98 centimetres wide, and I worked out by dividing the height of the puzzle by 2 that the height of a section is 68 centimetres tall. So it's 98 by 68. Now that you know that, you can now decide whether or not you're going to tackle the puzzle in the sections, in the bags, or whether you want to mix the bags or mix just maybe 2 or 3 bags, and work out how big the sections are going to be depending on how many bags you mix and which ones you mix. So let's say, for example, that this is maybe your first large piece count puzzle, which it was for me, and you want to just find your feet with it first and tackle it in sections. So that's absolutely fine. You're looking for a space that's 98 centimetres wide by 68 centimetres tall. And for me, I had a table that was big enough for that. I also had a plan for how I was going to move it around the house, because whilst I did have a table that was big enough to fit a section that size, I do have to put my puzzle away at the end of a puzzling day, because it takes up too much space in my house otherwise, and would probably get destroyed by the cat or something. So the way I kind of got around that was I purchased for myself a large piece of white felt. Just here, this is some spare I had left over. It was made to measure, so I knew the width was plenty for a section that I needed, and I just ordered however many meters I needed, and it was inexpensive. It was like $5 a meter or something. I couldn't find a jigsaw roll that was big enough for the 2,200 piece section of that, so all I did was I bought the felt, and I happened to have this spare cardboard postage tube that I bought a poster in for my son, and I used this to roll it around, and I just popped some elastic bands, or in my case hair bubbles, around each end, and that stored it really well, really neatly, and it allowed me to put it away every night and keep it safe from cats and dogs and children and various things that have the potential to destroy puzzles. Now, in particular, I found that useful because I actually decided when I was doing that puzzle to do 2 bags mixed. That was the biggest size that I did. And I did one above the other. So I worked out what I needed height-wise and width-wise. And I was able to use the felt and the roll and roll it up. Now, unfortunately, that particular section that I did was too big for my table, so a lot of that ended up happening either just in little bits on the table that I just then transported over, or on the floor. I did quite a lot of that on the floor, but again, it worked. I was able to do the puzzle, I was able to do all the other sections, and I was able to put it all together, and it was fine. I did it. It was manageable, and I did it in the limited space that I have. So if you want to kind of approach it that way, then that's a perfectly doable and manageable method for tackling a large piece count puzzle. Now, there are some, and myself included to a certain extent, who want to really be able to do a large piece count puzzle and say they've been able to do that many pieces all in one. I think there's a couple of schools of thought on that, really, and that is that one is that, you know, you're either doing a 13,200 piece puzzle, or you're doing so many smaller puzzles, and that's a fair enough point, and that's one of the reasons I did a larger section. That's one of the reasons I mixed the bags, because I did want to have that challenge of tackling a lot of pieces. But it was my first puzzle, and I also was realistic about whether or not I would manage it, whether or not I would fit it in, whether or not I would struggle with that many pieces and things like that. So for me, I didn't feel badly, really, about doing it that way, and the image itself was an achievement all on its own, because it's just such a gorgeous puzzle. I really, really, really wanted to do it, and for me, you know, splitting it down into sections just ceased to matter about that, really. So, you know, your call on that, whatever you kind of feel. But if you do feel like you want to do a larger piece count puzzle, and you want to do all the pieces, and, you know, feel that sense of achievement from having done that, then there are ways that you can do that too. And I would like to share with you my method right now. So the example I'm going to use for this is another large piece count puzzle I've done recently, which is the 6,000 piece Venice sunset puzzle, also by Clementoni. Now, this puzzle, having done a little bit of research on it, I discovered what size it was. It's 168 centimetres wide by 118 centimetres tall. So still a very large puzzle, still bigger than me. But the challenge that I faced with this puzzle is that it is not split into sections. It is 6,000 pieces, period. And when I found that out, I sort of pulled a face and thought, eek, how am I going to fit that in? And had all the same kind of thoughts and feelings that other people have communicated to me about fitting large puzzles in. I just did not know how I was going to build a puzzle that size. Now, I'm sort of lucky in a way, because I film the puzzles that I'm doing. So not only do I have to figure out how I'm going to fit it in, but I have to figure out how I can fit it underneath a camera without it, you know, hanging off the ceiling or something like that. So really, I was forced to really kind of plan this and figure it out. And the way that I figured that I would do it was to buy pieces of foam board and split it into sections of my own. So obviously the larger 13,200 piece comes in sections that are, you know, put together for you, but just because the pieces are mixed up doesn't mean you can't tackle a puzzle in sections yourself. So what I decided to do was look around for foam board, see what different sizes that it comes in. You can buy it on Amazon. I think I bought mine from Amazon, and it's about 5mm thick. It's white and it's lightweight, and it's just a flat, big board that you can sit and puzzle away on. I worked out from the dimensions of the 6,000 piece puzzle that I could fit it onto 4 pieces of A1 sized foam board, put together 2x2 landscape. I'll show you a picture just now so you can see what I'm talking about. This is the foam board here. It came in a pack of 10. Can't see my face. Doesn't really fit into the camera very well, but you know, you get the idea. It's just a big white flat piece of foam board. And I worked out that it just fit onto 4 pieces of the foam board. So my next task was to try and figure out how I was going to be able to do it in sections, because at first I was just going to put all the 4 pieces together and put it on my table and have it kind of hanging over the edge. And I actually filmed the edge pieces, putting together the edge pieces in my last video, with it like that, but it was too unwieldy. I was having to get up and walk around the puzzle and stand and kind of bend over it, and it was quite sore on my back, and I kept catching it with my legs and, you know, almost sending it flying. So it very quickly became obvious that I wasn't going to be able to do it that way either. So what I ended up doing was I did the edge, and I put it together for the purposes of the video, and then I separated the edge into the 4 quadrants. So I did that, and then I realized that I could do that with the rest of the puzzle as well, perfectly easily. So really the tip here is keep the puzzle as small as you can for as long as you can. And if you can manage that, the only time you ever need the full space for the full puzzle is when it's finished. And this is another good thing about these pieces of foam board, because even when you say 3/4 of the way through the puzzle and each quadrant is, you know, quite full of pieces, you know, put together pieces, even then they will stack on top of one another, and you can store them under a tablecloth, under a cupboard, on top of a wardrobe, wherever is easiest for you to store them, and you can put them away. Now, one thing I will say with foam board, just a couple of sort of warnings I'll give with foam board, are that firstly, if you have to put your puzzle away each time, and that involves changing rooms, like moving it from one room to another, make sure that the foam board pieces fit through your doorways. So lengthways, a piece of A1 foam board doesn't fit through our doors, but widthways it fits through fine. So I knew that I was going to be able to move it out of a room. I knew I was going to be able to stack it up, but just make sure, you know, your piece of foam board isn't so big that you can't even move it anywhere. The second thing I would say about foam board is that it quite easily dents. So if you accidentally maybe bash it off something, it can dent quite easily. So, you know, just try and kind of be careful with it when you're moving it around. But otherwise, it's just perfect for what I needed it to do, and the A1 sizes of the foam board actually fit perfectly under my camera for filming. I mean, that's not an issue for most people who are building these jigsaws, but you know, for me it was the perfect solution. And now I don't feel badly at all. Having done one, I don't feel like there will be any problem tackling any other 6,000 piece puzzles, and there's a few that I would like to do, and even bigger than that. So first of all, so like if I can give you an example using a puzzle that I have never done, so I'll kind of go through how I would plan to do it, and I'll try and give you sort of measurements and things as well, and hopefully it'll give you a good idea of how you can do large piece count puzzles and keep them small until they're finished. And then all you need to do is find a space big enough just to take a picture of it, lie on top of it, and have somebody photograph you, you know, and do whatever it is you need to do with it. So the one I'm going to use as my example is an 18,000 piece Ravensburger puzzle. It's my dream puzzle, which I would love to do, but will probably not be able to anytime soon because it's quite hard to get hold of. So the one I'm talking about is the 18,000 piece Star Wars puzzle. I think it's called Across the Universe or Across the Galaxy or something like that. But anyway, it's huge. So say I had this puzzle in my, you know, next room in my pile of to-do puzzles, and I was planning how I was going to do it. This is what I would personally do. I know that this puzzle measures 276 by 192 centimeters. So it's 276 wide, 192 tall. I just found that out by looking on Amazon. I also found out by looking in the Amazon reviews that this puzzle comes separated into 4 bags of 4,500 pieces. So I can figure out from that each section of the puzzle is 138 centimeters wide by 96 centimeters tall. So I can either do 4,500 piece puzzles measuring 138 by 96 and do it that way, or I can mix 2 bags and do 2 9,000 piece puzzles if I wanted to do it that way, or I can do all 18,000 pieces. What I do need to do is figure out how many boards I would need to tackle each particular instance after I'd decided. So if I was going to do a 4,500 piece section, I can pop over to Amazon. Now I know that a section is 138 by 96. I can pop over to Amazon and I can look up the foam board, and I can see that the ones you buy in packs don't come that big. So what I can do then is cut in half the dimensions of a section. So I would halve the width of one section, which is 138 centimeters, and that makes 69 centimeters. And I would also halve the height of a section, which is 96 centimeters, and that makes 48 centimeters. So you're essentially cutting the section into 4 quadrants. So an A1 piece of foam board more than fits a 70 by 50 centimeter section of this puzzle. So if I wanted to do a quarter section of an 18,000 piece puzzle, I can get 4 A1 boards that I would put together like this in a 2 by 2 grid and just tackle it in 4 quadrants like I did with my Venice Sunset puzzle. Or I could tackle a 9,000 piece section. I could do half the puzzle and just put 8 pieces of A1 foam board together, one under the other, one set under the other, just like you can see on this picture here. I don't think I would tackle 3/4 of the puzzle, but probably would then go on to just tackle the whole thing, which I would probably dare to do at this point. And for that, as you can see on this grid, I would need 16 pieces of A1 foam board laid out in a 4 by 4 grid. And the pieces will still be mixed. I'll still be doing an 18,000 piece puzzle, but I will be creating the sections myself. That's really the only difference. So, you know, this is how I go about planning my large piece count puzzles now. This is what I do when I'm figuring out if I can fit it in. And really the game changer for me has been the foam boards. All it really takes is just a bit of planning with regard to measurements. So if you know the size of either the section or the entire puzzle, depending on which way you want to do it, then you can figure out how many boards you'll need to be able to put the puzzle together. I think you can get A0 sized foam boards, but I think that would be a little bit too big in my flat. I think I'd struggle to fit that through the doors. So A1 sized has turned out to be pretty perfect for me, really. And just the way that they stack up and the way that you can just do little bits at a time and then stack them up, and you can start putting together a puzzle on your table or sections of a puzzle and easily just slide them on to the foam board. Assuming you hold it steady, you can slide them onto the foam board and there are no issues. I would not advise trying to pick up sections of puzzle with your hands. It's just too risky. There are some puzzles that are highly conducive to being able to pick them up. They stay together really well. But in my experience, the big puzzles I've done, they don't stay together well enough for you to be able to physically lift them up and move them around like that. They just would fall apart. So, you know, that's another thing that foam board's good for. Puzzle pieces, completed sections, slide on and off it really, really easily and really, really well. And I can just put them away in a corner on my table, stack them up, and put a tablecloth over them and some books on the top, and then the cat and the kids and the dog and anything else cannot destroy it. And I just get it out again as and when I'm ready to continue doing it. So I've really found that that is the best way for me, and that is the way that I will plan all future large piece count puzzles. And I honestly think it makes it doable even if you have limited space or a too small table, or, you know, hundreds and hundreds of people in your house and you only have a corner to do your puzzle in. Like, honestly, I think it makes it doable. Foam boards are the way forward. So now there's just a couple more things I want to say before I kind of wrap up the video. You may find that when it comes to actually finally putting the thing together at the very end, that could be quite awkward, because you've got this fragile puzzle which could easily fall apart, which you're having to then move across to a floor or wherever it is that you're going to take a picture of it, and, you know, it can be difficult to transport it. So with my puzzles, I know that I'm keeping them. I know that I will not build them again. So what I have done with mine is I separated mine into sections and I taped them. So if I could just show you here with the Venice sunset puzzle, I separated my 4 quadrants of the puzzle into 4 sections. So it's just like, it's kind of like a table placemat sized section, and I put blue Scotch masking tape onto the back of it, just in lines, and it creates a perfect little mat which stacks up nicely and fits into the box. So having done that, I can transport it really in the box wherever it is I want to take pictures of it. So in my case, I have a local community hall where I go that I have access to, and I can lay it all out on the floor in there and I can take lots of nice pictures, and there's plenty of space, and that works for me. I also did that with my Disney Orchestra puzzle. Now, you may not want to tape your puzzle, which I completely understand. If you're wanting to wall mount it, then there's no problems at all with taping it or gluing it. Some people, I know that, you know, if you don't have a physical space in your house to take a picture of the puzzle, I have seen pictures of people who've done these large puzzles who've taken it outside on boards in their garden on a sunny day and put it on the path or the lawn, and they've just put it together on the boards themselves, just put them next to each other so that the puzzle's together, and then taken a picture and then stacked the boards up again. I actually did that in my house. Just when I initially finished the Venice sunset, I just put the 4 boards together and took a picture until I was able to tape it and transport it. So, you know, there are ways you can move it to somewhere that's big enough, either on the boards that you've built it on, or by taping it up if you want to do that, or by gluing it, or just really depends on what you ultimately want to do with the puzzle. If you want to be able to take it apart and do it again potentially, or maybe pass it on to somebody else, then I would advise just keeping it on the boards, putting the boards together wherever it is you're going to photograph it, and then just taking it apart as and when you see fit, really. Lastly, I just wanted to leave you with some tips on using this method specifically. Now, I'm just going to scroll down a bit because my tips are in a big long list. Okay, so a lot of my tips involve sorting the pieces. Now, I know that there are non-sorting types out there. I classify myself as one of those people, one of those puzzlers. I hate sorting pieces. I just hate it. But unfortunately, if you're going to use this method for a large piece count puzzle, it's necessary. It just is necessary. You can't physically section out your puzzle if you have no idea which pieces go in what section. What would end up happening is, if you're shuffling through the box, looking for pieces and pulling them out, you would have all the boards on the floor in front of you, and you would just be putting them on each board depending on where they are, and you wouldn't really be space saving then. The trick with this is tackling one board at a time. You know, you can swap between the boards, you know, the ones that are away have away, and then pull them out when you want to work on that particular quadrant of the puzzle. But if your pieces aren't sorted, the whole thing just becomes a lot more difficult and awkward, and it kind of negates the whole saving the space thing that we're trying to kind of overcome. So I would say for large piece count puzzles, always sort your pieces into categories. This method just won't work otherwise. And this is something that I've found. I won't do more than a 2,000 piece puzzle now without sorting. And as much as I don't enjoy it, when it's done, and you can just build it, and the whole thing is just so much more pleasant as a result. So yeah, my advice would be to always sort the pieces. Now, if you're going to sort the pieces, before you do, take a really good look at the puzzle box image or the poster if it comes with one. The amount of times I've done this, and I've just sort of taken a really cursory glance at the picture and then put it down and then just started sorting away and then been like, where's that and what's that? And I haven't really taken in enough of the image to really know what I'm looking at when I'm doing the sorting. So my advice before sorting so many pieces is to look at your image first and just really ingest what's on there, what might be good categories for you to sort into, and, you know, what might be a bit small as a category or might, you know, be big enough for a category or whatever it happens to be. So like, if I can give you an example, I didn't really look very hard at this image when I was, before I sorted, and I ended up with, like, I had these pieces with green and yellow stripes, and I was like, I don't know what they are, but I was just kind of chucking them in a pile thinking, I don't know what they are. I found a piece actually that was the cat's whiskers, and I was thinking they look like cat's whiskers, and I don't really know. I didn't think there was an animal on this puzzle. Things like, just silly things like that, you know, where if I'd have actually taken the time to look at it properly, I'd have had a better idea of which pile to sort the pieces into, and the whole process would have happened a lot quicker. So check your box, check the image first. Third tip for you is to do, when you're sorting, do like a micro sort rather than a macro sort. So try and have smaller piles of like categories of pieces rather than humongous categories of pieces, because otherwise you might as well not have sorted at all, really. This was a lesson I learned quite quickly when I did the 4,000 piece section of the Disney Orchestra puzzle. I had humongous piles of like red pieces, and, you know, it would have served me much better if I'd have separated it into different shades of red. Just as an example, the pile just became too unwieldy to work with, so then I ended up having to do more like sorting as I went along. So I would say micro sorts are better than macro sorts, and the smaller your piles are, the more likely you'll be able to figure out which quadrant of the puzzle, which section of foam board it goes on, and it will just be easier to build, just be easier to put together and transport once you've actually built that section. So yeah, micro sort rather than macro sort. You will inevitably have large piles of pieces, you know, especially if you're doing 9,000 piece puzzles or say an 18,000 piece puzzle all in one go, you will inevitably have big piles of pieces, but you can sort as you go. So, you know, even if you can't help it and there has to be a big pile of pieces because you're just not sure where they are and it's a bit miscellaneous, or it's just a big area and there's a lot of them, like say an area of sky or an area of water or something like that, then you can, as you build your puzzle, you'll find that you get to know it better. You become more aware of where pieces go. If you're perhaps not sure of a pile of pieces, if they're a bit miscellaneous, you're not entirely certain where they go, you start to get a feel for where they go as you go along. So you can delve into piles and just pick it down, whittle it away and sort as you go. So that, you know, that's fine as well. You know, you don't feel like you have to do all of the micro sorting from the very beginning. There will inevitably be some sorts as you go along, and I would encourage that. I think that really, really helps. Right, so the next one's sort of personal preference, really. I like to use box lids for sorting, but I have had conversations with people recently who really, really, really like using trays. Some people like using stackable trays. Some people like using cafeteria trays. What I would say is this: I actually think cafeteria trays is a really good idea, and the reason for that is because they're big. Whatever you're sorting into, whatever type of receptacle you're sorting into, I would advise using ones that have a large area, so you can see what you're working with, especially with large piece count puzzles. It's not so important with 1,000 pieces because your piles aren't going to be that humongous. You can see what you're working with pretty easily. You can get away with using small trays or small box lids. I found it really helped having my big puzzle box lids, like this one. This is from the Disney Orchestra. Because it's just so long and wide, my piles of pieces just spread out nicely in there, and I could see better what I was working with. I would say that cafeteria trays probably work just as well in that regard. So whatever it is you're using to sort, it helps me personally to have boxes or trays with a largish area that you can work with. Also, I find that I can put boxes inside boxes and stack them up, so it helps for when I'm putting it away. And trays stack as well, so stackable and big for sorting. I told you these were all about sorting. If at any point you have to start sorting by shape, consider using maybe pieces of white paper to lay them out on. So when I was doing my Venice sunset puzzle, for example, I was doing the area at the top of the sky, and I was doing it kind of by colour at first, but then I had to start sorting the pieces by shape. And what I found was, because I'd already kind of filled in a lot of the puzzle around the sky area, I had my pieces either in a box where I couldn't really spread them out properly, or on top of the rest of the puzzle where I couldn't really see them properly. So what I did was I got some A4 pieces of paper and I just put like a piece shape to each sheet of paper, and I put them on top of the puzzle that I was working on, and the contrast allowed me to see it better. I knew which piece of paper had which shape on it, and I was able to just go back and forth and figure out which kind of pieces that I needed. So if you're sorting by shape, A4 white pieces of paper are really, really useful for that. It just helps you see them better and just grab them more quickly and be able to put them in a bit more easily. Yeah, so my seventh kind of, not really a tip, more of a warning. With this method of using foam boards for doing your puzzle and keeping it as small as possible for as long as possible, accept that there will be a little bit of awkwardness with it, because you can't really, if you watch my Venice sunset puzzle on this, where I was using the 4 foam boards, you don't really see how much I was actually swapping and changing boards and work on them. I kind of had reordered the footage, so I was just showing you one section at a time that I was working on. But in reality, I was generally trying to do it a section at a time, but I was obviously finding pieces that went in other quadrants, and so there were quite a lot of occasions, especially when I got further into the puzzle, where I'd work on a board, then I'd move that to the side and pick up another board, or I'd stack another board on top of it, and I'd do a little bit of that, a few pieces that I'd found, and then I'd put another board on top of that, and I'd do a few more pieces that I'd found. So there was a lot of swapping and changing the boards, and there's no real getting around that. You just have to kind of just accept that there will be some moving around of boards that takes place, and it can be a little bit of a faff. But you know, as long as you're prepared to do that and kind of accept that, then there's absolutely no reason at all why you can't enjoy the challenge of a large piece count puzzle using this method. So, sorry, I'm just looking back at my tips to see if I've missed anything. No, I don't think I have. I don't think I have. I think I've talked your ear off for long enough. So yeah, in a nutshell, you can do large piece count puzzles in limited space with smaller tables. You can mix bags. You can do the whole thing in a one, and you can do 6,000 pieces, or you can do smaller amounts, whatever you prefer. But if you love the image of a puzzle and you want to give a large piece count puzzle a go, please don't let space stop you, because there are definitely ways around it. For me, foam board, measure your puzzle, measure the sections you want to do it in, get the right sized foam board, and just sort your pieces. And once you've done that, the rest just comes together. You just enjoy the process of putting the puzzle together, and that's how I've managed to do this and managed to film it as well. And I've got the hugest list of large piece count puzzles that I would like to tackle now. And I just feel like, the sky's the limit. So yeah, watch this space. I will have you, Star Wars puzzle. I will have you. I have made my plan now, so it has to happen. Anyway, that's all from me. I hope that this has been helpful for you. I hope that this has maybe encouraged you to give it a go. If there's anything that I have rambled on about that perhaps I've not been very clear, or, just you perhaps need a bit of clarification on, please let me know in the comments and ask me, and I will endeavour to answer for you. But always remember that if you're not already part of a puzzling community, then and you love puzzles, join one, because they really are the loveliest group of people. And if you need information on a puzzle, large sized or otherwise, they'll help. Like, they're more than willing to help, so, as am I. So just ask me anything if you have any questions, and hopefully this has helped. And yeah, I will see you all in the next video. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Happy puzzling. Bye. Hi, me again. So since filming the bulk of this video, I have received some mail. And I'm very excited to show you what it is, because it is related to this video. Let's open it up. Okay, right. So I was shopping, sort of window shopping on the internet, and I was looking around for something I could get myself for Christmas. And I found this. It came the next day, which I was very pleased about, because it told me it was going to come at the end of November. But it's here now, and it's mine. Ta-da! Yes, I bought myself another giant puzzle. I think there might be something wrong with me. I just love giant puzzles. So this will be one I will be using my method on that I've explained to you in this video. And yeah, I can't wait to get started on this. I might need to buy more foam boards. Anyway, thanks again for watching. Bye for now.